Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Travelers Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3. My name is Logic Mage.
I am Super QGS.
I'm Dramalarian.
And today we are...
torogadude.
I messed it up.
You don't...
All right.
I intro the guys. I intro.
We have a flow.
I don't know if you count, buddy.
Well, I did make the Travelers, so...
And on that cue, we have with us today the creator of the Travelers himself, Torogaman, otherwise known as Torogadude. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Sorry for introducing myself a few seconds too early. Doing
It's
great.
okay. You know,
How
I
are
forgive
you,
you.
Logic?
I'm okay. But I haven't introduced our other special guest yet.
The creator of puppetmaster himself, Ericudo.
I just want to emphasize, it is the creator of puppetmaster.
Yes,
Capital
the creator.
Oh,
Yeah,
here
yeah.
we go.
Interesting. Maybe we'll get to talk about that a bit later. How are you guys doing today? See, now that the intros are out of the way, we can talk about
Now
it.
we get to have the awkward
I have permission to speak.
transitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. It's a good day. Just waiting for all the company stuff to happen so that we can go on Steam and stuff. So, yeah. Just twiddling my thumbs most of these days.
That's just crazy to me. Like, how does that feel that you have... Does that feel more official now that there's a company kind of behind this brand, like this game? Like it's
Yeah, definitely. I'm technically a small business owner now. Me and Eric together. So that's like a sudden distinction that I didn't realize was real, or was like so important up until that happened. So now there's like a LLC filed with the government that exists, and all this stuff happening in the background that I have to wait to finish, of course, but because government is slow. But it's interesting. It's an interesting feeling, and it's interesting to think about the future of Puppetmaster from the perspective of owning it as a property within a company. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Man, that's really crazy. Is that gonna like change how you like have to file taxes and stuff too, or?
Yeah, yeah, it's really complicated.
You don't have to. This doesn't have to be the tax
hopefully
podcast, but
no, I'm going to spend 30 minutes talking about taxes.
yeah, we know what the viewers really want to know about, guys. We're gonna go all into Torogadude's tax details.
No. Theoretically, the Kickstarter will make us enough money that we can hire an accountant to do that for us. Because I just want to make video games. I don't really care about managing a company or business or anything. I want to be programming the game and writing the game and all that fun stuff. So
yeah, it's crazy how like I feel like there's a lot of stuff that is really easy to not think about when you kind of go on to start creating a game like this, and it's like, oh yeah, like you're doing like business things, and I don't know, I feel like it's very easy to like look on the creative side of it and then not keep in mind like all the other stuff you have to do. But speaking...
Oh, yeah, go on.
Oh, no, you go first.
I was just going to say there was like a brief stint about a year ago when the old demo came out where I was looking into forming the company. But then we decided to commit to the demo now. So it didn't come to fruition back then, but it still was like a bit of a thing on the horizon that I wasn't looking forward to.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking forward to it, but like actually doing all this stuff, mostly because it's expensive. But yeah,
I don't envy that at all. But speaking of Gabriel Games, how did you and Eric kind of start making games together, both for Gabriel Games and before that?
We didn't make games before Puppetmaster. I was making games for a little bit and slowly getting better. I made Mafia Manager and then the Travelers. And then I wanted to do like a real big project once the Travelers was wrapping up. So I had like the really loose idea for Puppetmaster, and then I came to Eric and said, "Hey Eric, if I want to commit to like a really big game, would you do the art for it?" And Eric said,
I said maybe, I think. No, I mean, I think it was like a year or two after
It was December 2019. I think it was December
Yeah.
11th.
So it was a couple years after Hollow Knight had like fully gone through, and so he had played through it, and then he suggested it to me, and then I played through it, and then I suggested it to her sister, and then she played through it, and it was when we were like sitting around watching her play that he has that thought where he's like, you know, I feel like we could do something like this if we put our heads together for it, and I was like, well, I think it'd be an interesting thing to learn, especially because at that time, at least as far as my art experience went, that was something that would be very new because it was like the assets and smaller things like that. So I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, that was pretty much the first step I took into the scene, at least.
So did you not have like any interest in like developing games prior?
I just didn't have the capability of doing it. Like, I'm not a programmer. I don't know the fancy schmancy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. He writes out his 90,000 words in programming. I have no idea how any of that stuff works. So I just don't think it would have been possible for me. I actually had a little bit before I had tried to work on a game that was I forget what it was called, but it was stuff that I could make like concept art for. So I tried to step in, and I was like, I don't know if I'm quite good enough to be competing with some of these other guys yet. So I just backed out of it on my own. But other than that, not really.
Gotcha. So I guess you mentioned that you said maybe at first. How long did it take you to like get on board with actually developing or working with Toro to do Puppet Master?
I think when I initially came to Eric, I said, this is a really big idea, though. Let's take... Because I was still like deep in the I was still deep in the Travelers, actually. December 2019 was like 6 months before the Travelers finished. So I was like, let's take like these next 6 months or so while I finish the Travelers to just let the idea sit in our heads and come back to it every couple of days and talk about it and plan out the finer details of the plot and stuff and decide if this is something we really want to commit to. And then when the Travelers is done, we'll go from there. We'll see if we actually want to do this or not. Because the thing about a years-long project is that most people get burned out of them. Most people just, most programmers or like hobby game developers just make like a side project every couple weeks and then they get bored and move on to the next one. That's a big, almost joke within the indie developer community is that people never can finish their projects. So, and I'm well aware of that as a thing. So me and Eric said that we would wait a while and see if we were still committed to the idea, and I would start learning how to program in C, and we would come back to it. And June 15th rolled around, and the Travelers released, and we were still all about it. We were still very excited about it, and so we worked on it, and we worked, and to this day we're still working on it, and we're still very excited about it. So,
but you also had he also had his 9 months of when he first was developing the engine. So it was like a 6 month period where he was getting the Travelers finished. And then it was an additional 9 months where he was working on the engine on the side. So it was like, I was pretty much like, yeah, I mean, when he proposed the idea, I was like, I got nothing better to do. I think that'd be a pretty cool thing to work on. Obviously, it's something that like, it's a big committal, but it's also something that, at least personally, I think it was one of those things where, as an artist, I'm like, this is a good way to learn. This is a good way to develop my skills.
Drawing hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
Essentially, yes. So when he proposed that to me, I'm like, yeah, I'd give it a shot. And I'm not the kind... I don't get burned out by drawing. I can draw like 10 hours a day. So I was pretty confident in my own ability to do that. But then he had his thing to finish up, and I was like, okay, we'll wait for that. And then he had his... all right, well, I'm going to build the engine. So I was pretty much sitting on my hands for like a year and a half waiting for him to get everything wrapped up before I could actually start doing something.
Yeah, I was looking at some timestamps recently to be a little more specific. I started working on the engine about 3 months before the Travelers released, just really lightly because I was still learning C. So I did some very basic, just like rendering pictures on the screen and stuff, really, really basic stuff. And then the Travelers released 3 months later in June. And then I was like, okay, so I'm fully committed to this now. So I need to figure out all the tiny details of an engine, like physics, I had to find a physics library because I actually tried programming physics myself and it just didn't work at all. That's a bit too much math for me. So I tried to, so I had to find all these different libraries and stuff for like the extra hard things like the platform layer, GLFW. I used Raylib originally. Chipmunk 2D we used for physics, and a couple other libraries. The Sean T. Barrett libraries for fonts and stuff. So I had to figure out how to get all of that in like because a game is more than just like putting pictures on the screen and pressing left and right on the keys. A game is highly configurable and highly variable and has to account for a whole lot of different things. And I wanted to learn all that stuff at first so that I wasn't like rewriting tons of code later down the road, because I made things too, I guess, hard-coded, so to speak.
What made you commit to GLFW as opposed to like Raylib or SDL?
Oh, so that was later on. I'll get to that in a sec. But to wrap up my previous thought, the next 6 months after the Travelers, or 5 months it was, is what it took me to get the engine into a playable state and get that very first really ugly, super tiny Keeper's Castle demo done. That came out forever ago. It was a couple months that it took to finish the entity editor, and then I started telling Eric to start drawing different types of pictures and stuff, and then I'm pretty sure it was November 2020 that first demo came out. So about a year after the initial concept. It did feel like a year and a half at the time, though. It felt like a super long time. Not to discredit Eric or anything, but yeah, it was a whole lot of time that was spent getting it working, just at all. So what was your question again, Logic?
So I was curious why you went with GLFW as opposed to like other layers like SDL or et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I started with Raylib because Raylib is a very beginner-friendly library.
Right.
But then I started having limitations with it because the lighting wasn't how I liked. So I ended up having to learn how to write shaders myself. And then the shaders didn't have the variability that I would have liked. Mostly that it had a very hard-coded text system, and I wanted to be able to write a text system myself so that I could eventually move away from hard-coded glyphs and into SDF glyphs, which basically means you can dynamically render your font at any size, which is really important because people want to be able to change their screen sizes, right? Up until, I want to say, did it make it into last year's demo? I don't remember. I feel like it didn't. But last year's demo, I was like pre-rendering fonts at like 9 different sizes for each of the screen sizes, and it just was really bad because then I had to make all these different cases in like the amulet menu and in the main menu for which font size it should use at certain sizes. So now it's nice because I was able to rewrite the SDF or rewrite the shaders to do SDF fonts. So all the text in the game scales up and down with the screen size as a direct ratio to 1080p. So it looks way nicer now, and it's way easier to design menus when I can just multiply every value by the screen size ratio. But that's stuff that I couldn't do with Raylib. Raylib was again a really good beginner-friendly tool, but I was slowly not being a beginner anymore and needed to make an actual complete game with real, accessibility is the wrong word. Real just customizability, the basic customizability that a game has, like changing your screen size and stuff. So I had to move away from it. But since I was already learning to write shaders in OpenGL, I decided to go with GLFW. So that's the full circle answer there.
Kind of in the same vein, just because we're on the topic, I guess. I was wondering about what are some of the biggest hurdles you had. Well, I have it written down here when developing the engine, but really just kind of in general, like with the programming side of things. Just because it's been so long since the initial project. So, like, is there anything that comes to mind or like stands out that's just was a real pain to get implemented?
Yeah, definitely fonts. The fonts were rewritten like 5 different times. Just converting initially from Raylib to my own font system took a few weeks on its own, ironing out all the different kinks and learning all the different variables that come with a font glyph, font glyph like value system, because each glyph has like 9 values that it needs to keep track of: the X offset, Y offset, the ascent and the descent, and the like the letter spacing and the bounding box of the actual character, because all the characters all have different sizes, but they have to have like an imaginary line that they're all on top of so that it looks like it's nice and neat in a row. So there's like a million different variables that it took me forever to get right. And then I didn't touch it for like a year, and then I was having problems with it again. So because I was having like letters get cut off a little bit sometimes with very specific letters, because I in certain edge cases I got some of them wrong. So I spent another couple weeks rewriting all the font stuff, and then rewriting a dynamic loading system for the fonts so that like it could be multi-threaded, because the engine was taking forever to boot up, because I had 4 different fonts at 9 different scales, and rendering and generating the glyph texture for each font was just taking an enormous amount of time. So and then finally rewriting all of that again to use SDFs. So throughout the development, fonts have hands down been the biggest hurdle. I can't think of anything else that comes to mind that was as difficult as fonts were alone.
Really surprising. From someone who hasn't really done any game development, you think getting text on the screen wouldn't be that hard? But
yeah, you would think. But it really is. And then I actually had to go and rewrite a portion of it again a couple weeks ago to make it compatible with Spanish characters. Like the Nye and the A, E, I, O, U with the hyphen or the accent over them, the upside down question mark and exclamation point. Those all needed to be implemented and compatible as well. So the glyph texture is a little big now, and a few months ago I made a caching system for it so that it just loads up the picture really quick. You can see the cache for each texture in the data folder. Yeah, that really was the hardest part, because people spend so much time reading the screen. The text has to look good and look right, and that was a really hard thing for many reasons. Yeah.
So you're saying that after spending so long working on the Travelers, the hardest part of Puppet Master was the part that's text based?
Yeah, that's really ironic. Yeah, that's a funny way to put it. JavaScript and browsers, they all handle the text for you. Didn't have to think about text rendering at all. I just picked a font size, I picked an alignment. But then I switched to C, and I had to program font size and horizontal and vertical alignment all on my own.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I don't have CSS anymore. I don't get to just type in a few letters and it's good to go. There's some huge text functions in the engine now that have a million different parameters in them.
I never thought I'd feel grateful for having to do CSS.
Oh yeah. No, you should. If you ever have the pleasure of trying to make text render on the screen in OpenGL, definitely appreciate it anytime you don't have to in something like browser games or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I've been thinking this whole time. I can't think of anything else that was nearly so much of a hurdle as fonts consistently were. Everything was pretty straightforward to program. You have your usual bugs, and sometimes you have your memory leaks, and sometimes you have a really gnarly bug that takes a few days to fix, but the concentration of gnarly bugs and how long it took to reprogram fonts each time, it's just fonts by far were the worst thing.
How about some other hurdles in the development sphere? Like maybe not programming hurdles, but things like, did you have any hurdles in design or creating art or deciding, any story things or how the music would go?
So,
Eric can talk now. Yeah.
I was gonna say, at least as far as art goes, the biggest thing that at least I had to deal with to start that gave me a bit of struggle at first. I have, up till this point, literally zero experience with animations.
Oh, no.
So like when we actually started trying to animate characters, and I wanted to be a little unique with it, where I was like, instead of having like the characters be smaller or like their designs be too simple, I thought it'd be cooler if they looked like they were fully animated and they looked like they were alive. With more detail, because my style is very detailed. So I was like, well, that can't be too hard, is it? And as someone with literally zero animation experience, I can tell you that the Chain King, when I was going through and doing all the animations for him, like, I think I had to draw him like 130 times.
Oh my god.
So it was just one of those things where you don't realize how much work something is until you're drawing the same character 130 times. So then that was like I had to go back to him a few times, and I was like, okay, I'm struggling in this spot right here. I'm gonna need I need some guidance or some direction on what to do, because you went to that was
It was
part
mostly
of
the
your,
idle animation.
idle, because that was something that I have consistently had difficulty with. Was for some reason when they move, I can kind of figure that out, but when they're just standing there, I just don't really know where those pieces go. So it gave me a bit of trouble at first, and it's probably going to still give me some trouble for a while. But
well, we ended up coming up with a smoother system.
yeah.
That's a good example of like a cooperative hurdle that we had to figure out, because I don't know how to draw in 2D, but I know how to animate, and Eric was vice versa, right? So Eric was sending me like little like blueprint parts of like different colors, so I would animate. You remember the colorful Chain King in the one demo? Yeah. So I animated all those pieces and then sent all the animations back to Eric for him to draw the Chain King details over. What we eventually came to realize was significantly easier and that's actually what we did for the NPC that's in the game now, is Eric would just do what he did for the puppet. He would send me the highly detailed parts, and I would position them in Photoshop and just animate them myself. And anytime there was like a weird discrepancy or perspective issue, I could just, I could do a little Photoshopping. I color in something myself. So that's what we did for the NPC. We all those animations, Eric just chopped them up into little bits, and I moved them all around and made him move decently smoothly. I think the animations aren't my best, but they look good enough, I think.
It's funny because that was our first thing we did. The first thing we did was animate the puppet, and we got all those pieces for the puppet, and we, instead of doing it like I was drawing the puppet 170 trillion times, it was I draw the limbs and I do different angles of it. So like as he turns around, I drew the leg in like 5 different positions, and then you just put them in as you needed. And for some reason we just completely forgot about that, I guess, because we did it for the puppet, we did it for like the different enemies that are there, and then for when the Chain King came up, we were like, well, clearly we got to do this the hard way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, because he's organic, we can't just do body parts anymore. But we didn't realize that the thing that made body parts work was it being in 2 dimensions, and not necessarily how organic or mechanical the structure of the character is. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we ended up figuring that out towards like the tail end of the Chain King animating, and like
it was the idle animation. It was the idle animation. We figured out. Wait, we could just do that. Yeah, you were like, can you just send me the limbs instead, and I could just do the idle animation for you. And I was like,
I'm pretty sure we have a message somewhere in our DMs where like, why didn't we just do this for all of them? Because it took Eric so much time.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to say, just the whole process you guys seem to have set up is really interesting, because if you look in the files, you notice that I don't know how many characters this applies to now, because I guess it's a bit of a mix based on what I'm understanding. But for the puppet, like all of his limbs are like totally disjointed, and I was curious as to why that was. But yeah, that kind of answers it.
Oh, are you talking about the couple where like the perspective of the limb is like completely skewed and horrible looking?
It might be. I'd have to take a look at it again.
Yeah, there's a couple where the puppet's like arm like goes towards like the view of like the camera, I guess you could say, and there was just, I didn't feel like bothering Eric for the part, and the character was enough in motion for that animation that Eric did draw a couple of them that worked.
For the puppet, because the puppet's like your main reoccurring character, you're looking at him all the time. What we would do is he would skew it, and then he would send the image back to me, and then I would edit it at that angle to make it look better.
Well,
so it would just make it a little.
That's what I was supposed to do, but I
well, we did it for a few months earlier on. I think later on, as we started getting towards
later on, I got lazier, and I was like, we'll fix this later, and then we realized no one ever noticed, so we never. I never ended up telling Eric that he needed to redraw this.
No, there were a few I did. I remember
skewed
there was a few
angle.
I did.
Yeah, there were a couple towards the beginning, but then as game development goes, I was like, this looks good enough, I'm going to move on. And then it actually does look good enough,
No, that's really funny. That makes a lot of sense. It's also like there's things that I feel like as a designer you kind of hyper focus on. You're like, if this is the way it is, like this can't be like forever. This has to be temporary, or like everyone's gonna notice and hate it. And then you put it out there, and like no one says a single word about it. And then it's like at that point, do you fix it? Do you circle back to it, or is it like, okay, it's fine? How it's interesting to have to make that choice.
Yeah, the critiques are always what you don't expect, especially the way we do it. Because the way I do things is that if I'm paying attention to it and I notice it's not perfect, it has to be perfect. That's how I feel like you make your game good. You don't cut corners. You don't acknowledge that something is bad or subpar and then move on. You put that on the list to fix it, or you fix it right now. And that's what I did for the Travelers, and that's what I'm doing for Puppet Master. And the game looks really polished, in my opinion. After it did take 3 years, but I think it looks pretty polished at this point.
I think it's incredibly polished. I played through the demo. I finally got around to playing it a couple of days ago, and it absolutely blew my mind. Like I liked the previous demo that you guys had released, but like, man, you really knocked it out of the park. Like I was beyond impressed with everything in the new demo.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that.
I think the thing that makes at least this new one that we did better than the previous is I feel like previously it felt like it was like a test thing you throw out, you see what people think, you're like running around like a random area or whatever.
Yeah.
But now it feels like we took a part of the full game and we placed it in front of you on a plate, and you're like, all right, here, have at it. So it almost feels like there's more to this game now. Like, it feels like you can go through those doors and there's places you can go that, but like we just locked that off for now.
Yeah. That's what I said in like December. I said that we're making it the first hour of the game. It's going to have everything that it needs, so that we don't have to like sit there and say to people, oh yeah, that one we'll get to that eventually, or we'll get to this, or we have these ideas, and then people are like, oh okay, but they don't really see if we can do it. I wanted it to be the full experience, to show what we're capable of.
That's a very common kind of like, I guess specifically, any kind of game designing or game creating, but it's like making a vertical slice of it. It's like, that like, you have the systems, it's going to work and people are going to like it. You can just, now that you have it created, you can just make more of what you've done, and that it's going to be good and people are going to respond to it similarly and everything like that.
Yeah, a big pet peeve of mine is when I see like people's personal projects online, and they're like, oh, there was this little thing that I had to do that I'm going to do and get done the next day, and to me it's like, why didn't you just wait until tomorrow to post it, right? Like, so you didn't have to go and reply to people's comments and criticisms, and why didn't you just wait? And so that's sort of, and I know it's become a bit of a meme in the community how long it takes me to do things, but that's I think that's a really good thing for development, is to wait until something is like that you feel is acceptable before you show it off and you bring it out to show everyone. Because if you are like prepared to come out into the public and say, oh yeah, I'm fully aware this isn't done, but I could have done it if I had another month, like just wait the month.
It's a big problem with like AAA especially, is you hear the term bullshot, thrown around a lot, where it's like you have this this is what the game is supposed to look like, and like that these are the kinds of demos that get shown off at like E3 and whatever. But you kind of have to respect when you're not going for that, right? Like everything that you see in the trailer is actually in the game, right? Everything that's everything that you're showing off is like, this is the quality we're aiming for the entire experience. Like, it's really admirable, I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get ahead of the curve with that, because I'm sure that annoys a whole lot of people. Like, I'm sure I'm not alone in that regard. So I want to come out with a very professional looking product and say, here it is. This is what it looks like. If you donate to our Kickstarter, the rest of it will look like this too. I don't want it to be, it'll be better if you donate to the Kickstarter, because then it's riskier because they don't know what we're capable of, So I want to show that we can do it.
You definitely showed me that you can do it, and I don't know if you've played this game or not, but this is going to be a very good compliment, even if you don't realize it. But it gave me similar feelings that parts of Spiritfarer gave me, and Spiritfarer. Have you heard of that game?
No, I haven't.
It's a very different game, but the animation and music in that game is like really, really well done and incredible. And it just feels like it manages to feel like a real, not a real place, but like it has such a sense of presence. And I feel like just the sounds and the visuals and, you know, even the physics and like the way things feel like, it
this
just
looks
like
really pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like, and I feel like this is something that like, you know, your music, like everything is kind of important to creating that. But I feel like the last time I played the demo, it was like, okay, this is kind of a cool game, but like, I remember, I think my main opinion was like, it seems pretty cool, but like, it doesn't really seem like my type of game. But like, when I played this, it just felt like completely different to me. And I don't know if I can exactly place why. It could just be like all the polish and everything, but like, I was just really, like, I wasn't expecting Antor. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Antor.
I was like so happy to see him there, and I don't know why, but it made it feel like such a fleshed out experience. Like it wasn't just kind of walking through corridors and like, oh, this is what the game will be like, but like it really felt like I was experiencing like a world and the start of a story, and I was intrigued on like, you know, what is going on, like, you know, what are these castles in the background, like what are these houses used to be, why are there a bunch of pipes, what are the pipes carrying, I don't know, stuff like that. It felt vastly different than the first time I played it, and I don't know exactly why, but I know that it was good.
Yeah, I do just want to like jump on what Super said versus the last demo versus like the current one. It did feel like a lot more complete. I felt like with the previous demo, the areas felt like very disjointed. It didn't feel like whole. And this demo felt a lot more whole. It felt like an experience instead of a tech demo, I guess. It was very cool.
We really appreciate that, guys. And yeah, polish brings it to life. You know, all the tiny little details of polish combined to make something feel real and like a real place, you know, instead of a bunch of mechanics that are mostly working, right, as you said. So and of course the redesigning the whole world probably helped as well, because the old world was really bad. Thanks.
I really like the
Logic
new
for
levels.
his excellent criticism.
I was going to say
they were basically a level design 101, and I was able to actually go from there and think about how to structure levels. So good criticism was definitely needed for that old demo. So
yeah, can you talk a little bit more about the redesign of the levels? Kind of what you took away from Logic?
It was mostly just that I wasn't thinking about like level design really at all. I was putting a bunch of platforms down, just shaping the levels generally. I had a couple cool sights to see, you know, like the statue and a couple rooms in the Keeper's Castle, but they weren't working together to look nice, you know. The platforms. We also hadn't really ironed out our platforming philosophy for this game yet, which, you know, most games have all these floating platforms and stuff, right? So we were just doing that. And we ended up deciding to just not ever have floating platforms. If there's going to be a floating platform, it has to be big and clearly connected to the background. That is one of the main platforming philosophies that we're going to have to, because especially with how slippery the puppet can be sometimes, I think the game is more fun without having all these thin platforms that make platforming difficult. So, but anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah, I mostly just wasn't thinking about the important tenets of level design at all, like making a level feel like it's going in one direction. That was one of Logic's main criticisms that I really kind of blew my mind thinking back on it. A level has to go from one direction to another clearly. It has to, because otherwise you can get lost within the level itself and not really know what's going on. The DC elevator level from the old demo was the perfect example, because you like go down and then you go left, and then it's a big circle to come all the way around. Yeah. And then there's like a little up hidden area, and then you can go left and then down, and it's just a maze. And mazes aren't good. Mazes are never good, unless like it's like a set piece or something, like in like Tears of the Kingdom or something. But mazes aren't good usually.
City 4 was pretty good.
What?
City 4 was pretty good. I think City 4 was good.
City 4?
I think you're thinking of City 3, Super.
Oh wait, is it City 3? Am I? Okay, the maze, the withered city.
The Travelers.
Oh, the Travelers.
Sorry,
Taro doesn't know his own writing.
I was gonna say, I was like,
I know them by the
even
names,
Eric
not by
knows.
the numbers.
See, Toro, the Travelers was this game that we used to play like when we started this podcast. It was a while ago. We'll figure.
All right. I don't know their numbers, okay. But anyway, yeah, a lot of the levels were just mazes because I was just putting a ton of random platforms down, and it didn't really make sense. And the overall world design didn't have any direction either. There was like an upper area that did nothing but lead back to the beginning, and a lower area with a point of no return that didn't really make sense. And the point of no return actually made it into the cut for this demo, because I thought that falling down the really big pit was really cool. But that's a decision that I actively made toward the level's design. You know, that's something that I didn't just drop in because it seemed cool. I said, if this is going to be the aspect of this level, then the world has to work around it. And it can't just be a really, really, really tall tunnel that takes you all the way back to the top like it was before. Like, I made a couple areas interconnected, and the area after it has the shortcut back with the amulet after the Chain King and stuff. And it's a lot more... Everything just... I can't really describe it because I don't think there's really rules to it besides the direction thing. It's just a matter of considering how it's going to feel to run through the level and through the world as a whole. Like, on a macro and a micro level, if you just like think about it and you stick to your philosophy for platform design that works best for your game, like I said, like we figured out with not having floating platforms, then it should be fun. You know, it shouldn't take too much effort to make something that feels fun to run through and play through. And if it doesn't feel fun, scrap it and make it again, right? Like, it's not hard to put a bunch of hitboxes down and run through them.
So. Well, to add to your point too, specifically with the area where you fall into the big pit, I think before, at least with how we had it set up with like music and sound effects and the atmosphere and the space that you're in, since it was an intentional decision, then you can go forward with that intentional decision and go, well, clearly we have to signal to your player that something like this isn't just you're going down into a small area. When you drop down into that top part before you jump into the pit, the music cuts and everything's very deep and it's echoey and it sounds different. So now you as a player are going, something's different about the area I just entered. So instead of it just being like this new platforming spot where it's just you jump from ledge to ledge to spot, it now is this, in the player's mind, it is of some significance, which it should be since you're approaching a boss. So yeah, to agree with your point, it was something that can work, but we had to do it properly, you had to do it properly with how you redesigned that bit of the level.
Yeah.
I feel like I was a lot less overwhelmed while playing it too. Like, I feel like everything felt like it kind of flowed together. There was never any points where like I felt like there was multiple paths, or like if I ever had like an alternate path to go, it was like one alternate path. It didn't feel like it was branching out further than I could like comprehend and like comfortably like explore it and like kind of like understand it within my head about where I should be going and things like that. Like, there were alternate paths, but it never felt like it. I think I just remember with the first demo feeling overwhelmed and like not really understanding how the space was constructed or where I should really be going. And I had no issues with this demo whatsoever when it comes to that.
Yeah, the player's got to be able to mentally build the map in their head as they run around, and if there's too many open spaces and ways to go that are too difficult to explore immediately, then it can be overwhelming. And that's not to say that rule can't be broken. I do intend to break that rule later on in the game by making multiple long paths and directions to go that'll take you to different major areas, and that's something that Metroidvanias do, right? That they're non-linear.
Yeah,
but it has to be in a way that has to be on a macro level, like on a big world design level, and not on the individual level design. If I put like 30 small squares in the level and make 5 exits to the level, and then you just have to like there's no way to build that headspace because the camera's too zoomed in. You have no idea where you are half the time, and you're just going to go down a random path and have no idea what's going on. But if you construct it like you said, if there's a direction that you're going and you come across a split in the path and you explore down a little bit of one and you're like, well, this is a real path, so I could go check the other one, and you go down the other one and it's also a real path, now you have a decision to make, and that's an interesting thing for the player. Now we have to remember that there's another path, but it's not like the world isn't impossible to keep constructed in your mind, like in your headspace. So yeah, it's such a funny, subtle thing, because I feel like everything that I've said so far is something that is a rule that you can break and get away with it if you do it the right way. It's just, I guess that just goes to show how subjective fun is, right? If you play it and you have fun, then you're doing it, then you're making it the right way. And if you aren't having fun, or if you're unsure about if it's fun, then you're doing it wrong. And especially take criticism from other people about if they're having fun or not. So
I also feel like with the kind of the rules being broken thing, it's like I almost feel like a great designer will like know the rules but also know why they're breaking them, rather than kind of doing things randomly. Like sticking to the rules isn't going to be the right way to go all the time, but if you are going to break a rule, you should know why that rule is being broken and what it's going to do for the level and for the game.
Yeah.
One of my my favorite parts, and this is like this isn't like like groundbreaking, like it's not like it's never been done before in level design, but I feel like it was executed really well. Was in the city, I kind of went through the front door of like one of the house areas, and then I kind of went back and I decided to like climb up to the top, and there was like a place I could go in from the top, and a lot of the enemies had their backs turned to where I was, so like I felt like it almost felt like it was such a simple way of doing it, but it almost felt like a stealth option where I was like kind of taking this like back entrance in order to like catch people off guard and stuff. And I don't know, I was just really, really, really impressed by the simple but engaging choices that it had with things like that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much thought I have to put into the directions that the enemies face. Like when I'm making the level, when I'm deciding where an enemy should go, like the direction he's facing is it's sort of like that, right? Like it kind of guides the players like where they feel like they should be going. Like if the enemy's facing the wrong way, then you feel like you've come from the wrong direction, right? And you feel like you're exploring in a different way, which is fun.
Yeah.
If I make him facing you, then it hints that it's the right way to go because he's trying to prevent you from going forward. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Another I want to call this kind of a minor thing, but something I've never really seen a game of this genre do is like puppetmaster plays with the camera a lot. Like it's actually very it's very interesting to see in action because it's just such an unorthodox like way of kind of guiding the player, because there's a lot of smart things you can do with the camera in this game.
One of my biggest gripes, a lot of the inspiration for stuff like that in this game comes from gripes with Hollow Knight, because I love Hollow Knight. It's an amazing game. But so many times I said to myself, man, this area is so cool. Why don't they pan the camera out a little bit so we can see more, right? Mm-hmm. Like the City of Tears, it's the exact thing that I did with the statue that Hollow Knight didn't do with their statue. And their like take on the player walking up to the important character statue, the camera just shifts up a little bit, but you don't really feel the scale because the City of Tears is meant to be enormous, right? You can only really tell how big it is from the map. And puppetmaster, I zoom the camera way out, and so that you can kind of feel how big this statue is, and you can get a hint of the cathedral in the background that's towering over everything, and you can only barely see the top of it if you climb up the building to the right and jump out. And that's not something that you can do unless you mess with the camera and just pan out a little bit. So that's one of my gripes that turned into cool mechanics. Just making the camera able to zoom out and designing all the assets in the level around how the camera's going to zoom in and out in different areas. So
we've got a lot of gripes that turn into cool mechanics.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
Entire combat system.
The entire combat system
that turned into a cool mechanic, 100%.
Yeah, that's entirely true.
I'm a big fan of the combat system. I feel like I had a little bit of an easier time because the combat system I don't think it changed that much since the previous one, but it was really solid in that one, and it's really solid in this one too.
Yeah, the combat system has had the most work done to it. Like it just purely as a mechanic for sure, because comboing and like smoothly moving while you're attacking and stuff is really something that we need to get right if we want people to feel like they have like full control of the puppet. You can't just be like wildly flailing around and difficult to control. So
I really liked the I don't know how long this has been implemented, but the new ways, I forget what they're called, but the ways you can change your combat abilities.
Yeah, that was brand new for this demo. That was a big secret.
That was really cool. I was surprised with that, and I thought that was like really genius.
I have a funny story about that. I was out eating dinner with my girlfriend and my mother. I forget the reason, and then I just get a text from him, and he's like, "I got this good idea," and I'm like, "Oh no, another thing to make this deadline go farther." So I'm saying this to them. I'm like, "I just got a couple paragraphs from my brother. I wonder what he's going to be saying about this." And then I was reading through it, and then I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and I was reading through his whole thing that he said. And then I came back and I was like, I hate that it's a good idea. And I was like, well, then guess we're doing it.
Oh my gosh.
That I was like, it was literally.
That's how I roll. Is I get an idea and I write down a few paragraphs of it and then I throw it at Eric.
Yeah, and then we'll go back and forth for like 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes more. We had this one time where we were talking about some of the lore of the game. And we were just sitting.
Yeah.
We were just sitting in my room, just talking for like 3.5 hours, because we were like going back and forth. I had this one moment.
It was like sort of a plot hole, wasn't it? And neither of us were sure how to solve it. I had like an idea, but it was pretty lame.
I finally, after all this discussion, I like had that moment where I went like the inhale, and then I'm like, I have the answer, and then I said it, and he was like.
Yeah.
All right, we got the answer to this thing, but we were talking about it.
It's going to blow people's minds a decade from now.
Yeah, we obviously can't talk about it right now, but
we'll cut out of the podcast. You should tell us what it was.
Well, listen, if we have a podcast down the road and you guys, you play through the whole game, it's been out for a few months, and you want to talk about it, 100%. Because
I would love to.
Yeah,
talk about
that thing.
Of this game.
One of those moments in particular is that's like when you're making something, especially as a story writer, that's what you take your pride in, is those moments where your audience is going to take that gasp. And so like when I having that thought, I'm like, that's a good idea, I really like that. Now I want to get down onto paper. I wanted to get it onto a screen so people can play it, so they can experience that, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's definitely something that I think will stand out a bit, at least in the game.
The waiting definitely kind of sucks, because I'm so excited about the story that we've written for this game.
Yeah.
It's going to be years and years until people can see the whole thing.
Well, I don't think it might not be that long. Years and years, maybe like 2.5.
Years and years if the Kickstarter fails. It'll be
depends on the Kickstarter.
I think it'll be like 5 years to finish if the Kickstarter fails. If the Kickstarter's successful, we could do it in 2 or 3 years, but it's going to come down to the Kickstarter.
You heard that, listeners. Go link in the description.
Heck yeah.
Come on. I want to play. I wonder if I'll be able to know what kind of what it was when I experienced the game. If I'll be able to know what it is you guys are talking about.
I don't know if there's going to be like one particular moment where you might be like, oh, that's it for sure. but it's probably going to be one of those moments. It's probably going to
It
be one of those
happened a bunch of
things.
times. The nature of a really complex plot is that there's going to be plot holes that we have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you come up with the base idea for the story, and then I think I talked about this in the Traveler and with one of the other podcasts that you guys had me as a guest on. When I write a story, I try not to shy away from plot holes. I try to ask as detailed of questions as I can because I want everything to be mechanically sound within the story, especially when you have like magic and souls and all that kind of stuff, right? It can't just work because I'm waving my hand as a writer. You know, it has to be mechanically sound within its own mechanics.
The best works of fiction have that aspect of it, where it's even if it is some sort of magic or it is some sort of otherworldly weird thing, it still has a very good and sound in-universe explanation that makes everything flow, makes everything coherent, that doesn't make you wonder how or why a certain thing is happening, because it makes sense because it fits into the slot that you're putting it into.
Yeah, this is a gripe Eric and I both share about a lot of popular fiction, is magic that exists as a plot device instead of as a mechanic that is useful for people to decide to use when they're, smart, right?
If each piece of your story is not working towards the goal, and instead you are making your
you're magicking your problems away.
Yes, exactly. Like you're trying to writing over your own problem because you can't figure out your solution. I think that's it is a lot more to the credit of the writer when you can actually figure out those things through your own system rather than using a lame excuse to pull your way through it. It has to feel coherent.
Yeah, we've iterated over how the magic stuff in puppetmaster is going to work a number of times now because we ask ourselves those hard questions and have to spend some time brainstorming for a solution. One of them I think took us like a few months to figure out a solution for. I'm pretty sure it was pretty early on, but there was something that didn't really make sense, like as a motive for one of the characters, I think. So it took us a while to conceive of a motive and then sort of rewrite the consequences of everyone else's actions as a result of that motive.
Yeah. It's fun. It's funny. I was thinking to myself for a second. I was like, "Am I gonna have to like DM you to see what idea you're thinking of?" But then as you kept talking, I was like, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the sounds a bit more because, just like Super was saying earlier, with how he felt more of a sense of, I think the word he used was presence in this demo. I have a game engine professor at college, and he's worked on some pretty notable projects.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing that he mentioned that I've always remembered since that first year was, in his opinion, sound was the single most important thing that kind of brought immersion to a game world. And it kind of, after hearing this new demo with the sound, like I totally get where he's coming from, right? Like it just adds there's something about it that kind of grounds you in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think Toro did a really excellent job kind of porting over different things. Actually, do you want to talk about that more? Because there's stuff you were kind of hinting at in the server about like stuff with the whip as well. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more about that.
Yeah, so early on I thought I was going to record all the sounds myself. So I recorded a bunch of different things. Most of them didn't sound good except the whip. The whip came out really good. So I was like, well, I was struggling for a full month. Like the whole month of February, I was struggling to figure out how to just edit sounds, right, to make them sound good. To just record sounds at all, right? I don't have a sound recording studio. I don't have a Foley studio. I don't have tons and tons of different things that I can use to make different types of sounds, So I was banging my head about this for a while until March rolled around and it was taking too long. So I was like, I'm just going to buy sounds. I want to make this game. And there are 0 sounds made after a full month of banging my head about this. So So I did some research, and it turns out you can get game sound effects for really, really cheap. I went with Zapsplat.com. It costs like €4 a month or something like $3. It's so stupidly cheap. It's $3 a month, and any sound effect that you download. This isn't an ad for them. Any sound effect that you download,
It's sounding like it.
yeah. During like a period where you're paying for a subscription is like completely, there's no license at all. It's yours. You can do whatever you want to it. You don't even have to credit Zapsplat. So
I've actually used Zapsplat after you well, I was working on something with Rex and you recommended it, and it's not an ad, like, you know.
They're really good sound effects. Yeah,
it's a good deal.
Everything in puppetmaster was that except for the whip crack sounds. Yeah, so they got like hundreds of thousands of different sound effects on there, and of varying quality and varying length, and most of them are good. Some of them are pretty low quality, but most of them are really high quality and really good for mixing and matching to make the sound that I want. But that's actually the hardest part, obviously, is getting a raw sound, but raw sounds don't make the game. Occasionally they do, like, you know, I can just download like a coin dropping sound effect, and then that's going to be my gem collection sound, right? And it's not that bad. But anytime there's like a magical thing happening, like healing or placing a totem or even walking by a totem or something like that, I can't just like search for that, you know? I have to dream up a bunch of different sounds that are going to sound cool together for that thing. So the hardest part is getting the raw sounds, but if you're just going to pay a service for it, then now you get to the next stage of sound design, which is figuring out how things that aren't real should sound. And I very quickly decided that sound design is a unified thing, and a lot of things have to use similar sounds if it's going to sound right. So the big thing is that all of Magic uses the same types of sounds. It's like an ocean washing sound, an underwater currents sound, like a little bubbly kind of underwater sound. There's a fake explosion sound that they made on their site. They're like designed explosion, I think is their terminology. So it's not like a real, they blew something up, but like the slight offness of it, like it doesn't sound like a real explosion. So I thought I could get away with that as being a more magical type of thing. Lightning cracks, that's the obvious one. You know, thunder, obviously, and what's the last thing? Oh, a couple of them I have like just a flag flapping in the wind because it adds like a nice texture to the longer sounds. Like when you're placing a totem, a flag just flapping so slowly fades in really quietly, but it adds an extra bit of texture and bubbliness to the effect. But that's really hard, and that I'm saying that like it sounds simple, but that took me weeks to figure out. That took me a whole lot of time in iterating and screwing with all these different ideas and sounds before the totems actually really sounded like something that was cool, you know, and was interesting and like you said, immersive. You know, it feels like that's the sound that his hand is making when he holds it out in front of him and does some magic. It's
right.
Not just kind of random. And that's the big thing too, is I have to watch the animation and all the particle effects that I did. And I actually upped the particles a little bit because I thought that the sound was too powerful for the particles. So I actually iterated on the effects themselves to match it. So it's like, you just have to be able to look at it and tell if it's not working or not. And if it's not working, you have to keep working on it until it does. And I spent 4 months making the sound effects for this game. So, yeah, I'm learning stuff along the way, so it takes a long time. But it's definitely worth taking the time to learn it because it sounds so much better in the end than if I made the totem sound in a week and left it. I would have been disappointed forever, you know? So
that's really amazing because when I was playing, I didn't pick out any of those things that you mentioned, like the oceans or the explosion kind of simulation or the flag. It just sounded like a cool magical totem. Like it sounded like what it was.
Well, good.
And to know that like I didn't, you know, none of the other sounds, like it's really cool that they are in there, but like it just sounded like what it was supposed to sound, and it was really effective at doing that too. And so it's interesting like how it was composed of so many like different real life things to create that.
Yeah, that's something that I learned from a couple behind the scenes Foley videos that I watched. If you just combine enough things, it stops sounding like any particular thing as long as you're aiming for like a certain vision. So I just combined all these sort of whooshy sounds and it came out good. Which is downplaying it a little bit, but it's basically, yeah, you couldn't tell. Maybe you'll be able to go listen to it and hear all those things now, but you couldn't tell before. Wind chimes is one of them too. That's probably a more obvious one. There's wind chimes in most of them, and I also did a couple piano key hits. So like right when you place the totem, that's the most obvious one. As soon as his hand goes out in front of him, there's a really high-pitched piano key. It's like a cue that says you're starting to do something, right? So, and the cancel effect has that, and the healing effect has it too. But,
speaking of, sorry if I am kind of going on a different topic, but speaking of the totems, something I didn't really realize until recently was that you can only like kind of optimize your upgrades and stuff at the totems.
Yeah.
And I really like that because another game that I've played kind of recently is one of the older Final Fantasy games, and you can manage like your gear whenever you're on the world map. And so what I'm doing all the time is just like optimizing my gear and like, because I have like a bunch of different items that I'm sorting, and it's not too bad with this because there's not that many items to sort through. But because you are going to have like those limited spaces to do it, like one, it's a balancing thing, and two, it lets you kind of not worry about that for most of the game and kind of have those moments where you're like, okay, let's figure out, for this situation, what would be the best build to have or whatever. But then, whenever you're not at a totem, you're just, there is no min-maxing that you have to do. Like,
yeah, you're
there's
kind of forced to learn your current build for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a standard Metroidvania thing, but I think it works pretty well with the wherever you want checkpoints system that we've come up with.
To add to that too, I think specifically with totems, since the totems are something that you always have and place on your own, I think it also kind of emphasizes the importance of like making sure like there's a consequence essentially to placing a totem and changing your gear and then going out and venturing forward, because then the last checkpoint for you to go back to is obviously the totem that you placed. So essentially it's like this is everything that happens from this point forward is the consequences of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The demo, it's not so interesting. It's interesting conceptually, but it's really short, and you're going to get like 5 spirit fragments by the time you beat the boss or even decent at exploring. So, or like 4 probably if you're decent at exploring. But, there's so many of them in the demo right now that I'm really excited for like the final game to come out to see when people start getting like halfway through the game and they've only got like 2 or 3 totems, and every totem that you place is a significant investment and a significant risk towards your ability to explore and continue playing the game. And I'm excited to see how people's like charm setups and different combat builds and stuff are going to accentuate the way they want to play, if they want to be very defensively or if they want to push forward to try to get as far as they can to put the next totem down or be aggressive. That's also attack defense motion with the amulets, right? It all plays very nicely with itself. I'm really excited to see the final game and how totems affect how the average player is going to play it, because it doesn't really affect the average player in the demo right now. So
I almost disagree with that a little bit. I think it affected my playthrough a bit because the first totem I put down was kind of in a spot. And another interesting thing is like you can go back to the totem in order to like fully heal yourself.
Yeah.
And it was like so inconvenient to get back there. I kind of started like looking for spots where it looked like I could loop back later, and like intentionally like putting my totem there. And I only did that like 2 times because there wasn't like that many totems, but I thought I was strategizing, like looking on the map, like, okay, when am I probably going to be back here? I'm not going to put my totem just in kind of some like out of the way area that I'm not going to return to. I'm going to try to like think about where I will be again and kind of like strategize in placing it that way. Like there's lots of interesting mechanics that kind of circles around both the resource managing part of it and also like the, where is this going to be, like where can I place this to where I can get to it from multiple places.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that worked for you as a mechanic.
I personally thought it worked very well.
Awesome.
Something I was kind of thinking about around the totems was the combat augments. I feel like for me, I don't play like a ton of like games like this in general, and I am like somewhat familiar with Smash, like Super Smash Bros, which you've mentioned is like an inspiration from the combat. I felt like the combat augments for me were like a little bit like hard to like fully like wrap my head around just from looking at it on.
Yeah, there have been a few
totem.
criticisms of the menu, because the menu doesn't really show you which attack is which. So that's something I have to rework at some point for sure.
I was thinking maybe like a small like animation of how it like plays like. I feel like it's hard to like see how it's like positive versus negative. So like maybe like a little like animation on the menu of like the puppet against like an enemy and actually using the attack might be helpful.
Maybe.
It's funny because me and Bram were talking about this a few nights ago, where it's like, whereas I was playing that, I saw that, I think it was the first augment. I was like, oh, it's Roy.
Yeah.
And there was immediately a familiarity there for me. But obviously when Bram saw that, nothing really clicked.
It meant
like he
nothing
didn't.
to me. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a different ability, but how is this like like more helpful or like less helpful? Like it didn't mean anything, I guess.
Yeah, when I had the initial discussion with Eric, about like what 2 attacks we were gonna do, I was almost immediately like, we got to do the Roy jab, and I'm thinking for like a slower, heavier attack, the Donkey Kong forward air. I think that's what we're gonna do for these 2, and then that was the whole discussion. Eric agreed like immediately, so I don't think we had any other crazy ideas for combat stuff at that point, and they work well with each other too to combo the way that we made them. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't pick up on the Donkey Kong thing, but that makes sense now that you mentioned it.
Kind of like
I guess it's
kind
less
of like Mario's too.
It's less distinct, right?
Yeah, it's puppet styled, but it's the overhead slam, right?
Right.
So we're gonna have a 2-handed overhead slam eventually, and that one's gonna have like the spike hitbox that Donkey Kong has. I was tempted to put a spike hitbox on this forward aerial, but I didn't. Later on, there will be another. I guess that's a tiny spoiler. One of the other forward airs is going to be a 2-handed overhand slam, and it's gonna spike you. So that'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, but that actually, I was to add to the combat stuff we were just chatting about. That brings in, like, Bram, I know you were saying it was a bit confusing, and some people are going to have that more of that familiarity because they do have that base in Smash.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it still is figure out what works for you. So an attack that's stronger like that like smacks you an enemy really hard towards the ground, isn't going to be as easy to combo with, but it'll be doing more damage. So it is still like that self exactly. So it's still that sort of like defend, like you can build that stuff yourself to figure out, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be doing the craziest combos in these guys. Maybe I just rather get a big hit on them when I can. And then you have the option to do that. Or maybe there are specific moments where you're like, I feel like against this boss, this one move would work really well because I can't really do much after this anyway. Then you can think about that and then you can implement something like that.
Yeah, I would love to see people changing their builds for like every boss.
Yeah.
Experiment if they get stuck on a boss, just experimenting with what would work best for them. What they think would work best against this boss based on the way that they fight.
I think that's really... I didn't even think about that, but that's really smart because I feel like a lot of bosses that I face in games, like it's kind of a lot about the execution rather than the strategy. Like you kind of figure out the strategy and then, just do it until you can execute it properly. But having that option, be so dynamic before every single fight where you can kind of decide is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, especially since the bosses are going to be so dynamic. Because I can't think of a game with bosses as dynamic as even just the Chain King. Like the Chain King tries to guess if you're going to jump over him and swings up. Like what other game what other game has a boss where they just try to guess what you're going to do, you know? Every other game, they just roll a random attack from 1 to 5 and do it. And you have to wait for the attack to end and dodge it correctly and then get in and hit them a few times if that's an attack that allows you to have an opening, right? Like, it's so pre-designed and carefully controlled from a game design perspective that I'm really excited to move away from all those restrictions that standard bosses have with future stuff like the Chain King, you know, having bosses that combo you or try to guess where you're going to be, and that who you have to match their aggression and even overwhelm them. That's going to make it's so dynamic. Like we're really digging into making this as dynamic as it possibly can, and I think that's going to make the game stand out a lot. Hopefully,
Are there going to be any like traditional enemies that kind of have more mechanics similar to the bosses, or is that going to be mainly like to be contained to specific moments to challenge the player?
So there will be...
Yeah, kind of.
If you can say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's treading closely towards the maybe too spoilery, but
Okay.
there will be some bosses where like the Chain King is pretty small. He's about your size. So like comboing him is going to be easier, but a bigger boss is obviously not going to be getting knocked around as much by you. So let's say someone's a little
And there's
taller.
a really tall boss.
Yeah, there's going to be a pretty tall boss.
He's not really going to take knockback.
Yeah, so you're not going to be like flipping him, like smacking him across the room like you can the Chain King, because the Chain King is around your size and you can bully him a bit more. But the thing with the Chain King is that he can also, his attacks are also quicker. He can chase you down a little bit easier. He can combo you. So it's like that's the sort of stuff when we're balancing these characters. We want to make sure that every boss feels unique completely, and it's not just a different kind of bullet hell every time you fight a different boss. That you just have to learn that this boss is 4 moves, and he shoots this projectile, or he slowly floats across this stage. It's like a completely new thing every experience, because it's a new character. It's a character that's, I don't know, maybe he's 3 times as tall as the Chain King, or maybe he's like a couple heads taller than the Chain King, so he's a little bigger. So he's taking a little less knockback.
But he has very aggressive get off me options.
Exactly, or like I had an idea a bit ago where it was like, what if like the characters you interact with, what if they, or like not NPCs, enemies, different enemies that are walking around, what if they have their own type of personality? So it's like, instead of walking up and it's just, they're going to sprint at you. You know what I mean? It's, what if they get more defensive, or what if they get more protective, or they back up, or they like guard themselves, or something along those lines. So it's just so I don't want there to be a point where you're fighting an enemy and it doesn't always feel unique. It needs to be a new experience every time you get in front of a guy, and not just like, well, what's the gimmick here, or what's the different
like waiting to get hit a few times to figure out the gimmick.
Exactly, yeah.
Which you still kind of have to do, but
well, I mean,
I don't know. There might be no way around that thing specifically, but
there's being cautious in learning what someone might do to you, because obviously we can't animate 15 trillion different interactions, and we shouldn't, especially for smaller guys. But for bosses, at least, it's like, I don't want there to be any boss in the game that feels like it is too similar to another.
Yeah. And even in just like boss design philosophy, like there's not going to be another Chain King running around with sort of rope type of attacks and things that are based on ropes. It's going to be, there's so much we can do with this system that we've devised, and we really have to dig into the creativity that has the door that's opened for us. So, and we definitely plan on doing that. There's going to be so much that we can do. You can see it alone with just a couple enemies, right? All of the enemies dynamically react to you in the game right now, except for the guy with no arms.
He reacts. He just knows that if his best bet is to keep his head down.
Yeah. Like the guy that just sits there, like the really fat guy that just sits there on the ground. Like, he looks at you and he tries to push himself closer to you, and he swings when you're running at him because he's trying to hit you.
It's still my favorite idea that we've had, is that he's he's
kicking
missing a
his little
leg.
foot?
He's missing a leg. And he's just a little too chunky, so he can't move.
Yeah,
So he's
making
just
the
trying-
making
he's
the
just
little
trying to
creaky
get
sounds for that was really
Yeah.
fun.
It actually, they're a little, I mean, I wouldn't call this demo scary at all, right? But those guys are a little unsettling just in kind of like how, it's more the implication of like why did they end up this way and like why do they want me dead so bad? Or they're
Right.
like,
A
they're kind of
lower
like, they're
perspective.
trying to like inch towards you, unsuccessfully, yeah.
No one's really
That's cool.
talked about or like sort of explored the lore that we put in the game yet. So I'm glad that you like sort of naturally came to that thought, because that's the hardest thing for players. Because I mean, I didn't even do that when I played Hollow Knight. I didn't really start paying attention to the lore until like halfway through the game because I thought it was like pretty standard stuff. I didn't realize how many clues were being dropped. So I want to. That's something that we want to push a little earlier as well, without making it unfun, or giving players too much text. You know, I want to lead you to ask questions yourself, like with the things Antwer has said, or with the description on the monument.
What's the name of that Hollow Knight lore YouTuber? It's like
Mossbag.
Mossbag.
Mossbag. Yeah, you
Mossbag
gotta
is the
get
target
Mossbag
audience.
on this.
Yeah, no, actually, the number one target audience is Mossbag fans. Yes, this is true.
Well, Hollow Knight fans,
I'm kidding.
to be more broad, but yeah, the lore.
Metroidvania fan. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think the thing for me in particular, at least for this genre, is my love for Hollow Knight was like, I love that game artistically, and obviously it's the lore behind it is phenomenal. I was never a big Metroidvania fan, but Hollow Knight had that unique art style that really brought me to it. And then because of Hollow Knight, I started exploring Castlevania, and Castlevania, I started learning different aspects of it, like what made Castlevania unique.
And how good the first 2 seasons of the Netflix show are.
Oh yeah, the first 2 seasons of the Netflix show I will die for. That's like one of my favorite shows of all time.
I like the third one as well.
The third season.
Yeah.
I won't go too hard into it, but I got my problems with.
I
the
never
third and
watched
fourth
it,
season.
but Eric told me not to watch
No, I
it,
told
so-
him. I told him not to. There are redeemable parts of it, but there's just a couple scenes in that show that I just can't recommend. I'm sorry.
All right, anyway, moving along.
I think
Yeah.
I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah, you probably
Yeah,
know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
we'll leave it there.
We haven't talked a ton about like Kickstarter and Steam and marketing overall yet.
Yeah, what are your guys' kind of overall plan, like top to bottom with marketing the game?
So the plan was to start marketing immediately, but then I forgot that Eric pointed out how important a Steam wishlist page is. So we're basically not marketing. I'm padding the Gabriel Games Twitter. I'm just posting a tweet every day or two so that there's like a backlog of content there, like on my torogadude Twitter account.
That's good.
I'm going to buy Twitter Blue for it, but it takes like I have to be.
Ew, but I
I
understand.
have to be. Yeah, I know. I know.
Super's disproving.
I know. But
I'm not
they promote the
disapproving. I
tweets,
get
They promote the tweets. It's only $8. It's whatever. But I have to wait until the account is 30 days old anyway. So because they don't want me impersonating anyone. You know, if only there were a solution for that. But yeah. So I'm gonna get basically everything is waiting like a 30-day waiting period right now because I need to wait 30 days to get Twitter Blue. I need to wait 30 days for the Steam to approve the demo page and the Steamworks account. I need to wait some number of days before my tax ID exists, and that's what Steam is waiting on anyway, which hopefully that comes soon, man. It's been like 9 days since I formed the company, so hopefully I can get my tax ID soon so I can make the Steamworks account so that I can put it on there, and then the 30-day waiting period really starts. I'm also waiting until tomorrow to even, because speedrun.com makes you wait until your account is 7 days old to put the game on there.
Oh
So I have to
my
wait
gosh.
until tomorrow to even list puppetmaster on speedrun.com. So people
Yeah.
You
can
could have
start
asked me,
getting
Taro.
stuff.
I have a speedrun account. I could have done it for you.
Oh, could you?
Yeah,
Maybe they'll be more likely to accept it if it's a bit more.
if it's like
historical
not the
account,
developer.
too.
Yeah.
Also, if it's not the developer. Let's talk after this podcast.
Sure,
project.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if we can get that on there. I guess it's only a day away, but yeah.
once all waiting is said and done, what is your plan? And also, is there anything that you think you should be doing while you have this time before marketing kind of goes 0 to 100?
We're working on the trailer. Well, I'm fixing bugs right now. Right now, I'm just fixing bugs and getting through the list of the quality. It's actually just quality of life requests. I want to say there have been surprisingly few bugs, but I've released 5 demos now, and I've fixed most of the bugs that are going to exist. And I've played the game so much myself that I've seen most of the bugs that could happen, and I've profiled the game and put a RAM count in the debug box. I've done so much, so there have been surprisingly few bugs that have been reported. It's just a couple small things, like whenever Eric's going to get me this Xbox back button that Lightning WB talked about.
I just forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Hold to scroll and pause and main menus and like the amulet menus and stuff, and that's like pretty much it. So
I have one quality of life.
Yeah, what is it?
No, I just to bother you. Make it so that when you press enter, it does the same as space when you're like in the menu. Because I always press enter to like start games, and it didn't work.
You know, I have a function that says it like checks for menu interaction, and it does more than just check the menu, like the menu interaction control. I believe it checks spacebar if it's not bounds to anything. And I was gonna add enter to that, but I decided against it. So it's funny that you say that.
It's literally unplayable, Toro. I don't know why you would ever.
Yeah, I don't know.
That.
I don't know why that was such an oversight. When
you were talking earlier,
literally unplayable.
You were talking earlier about how like you should just wait until it's actually done.
I should have just waited.
You should have waited it before you added enter, and then we could have avoided all of this.
Man. But what were we talking about a minute ago? I wanted to finish my
marketing.
After
Sorry.
that.
Shoot.
What was I in the middle of saying? I think I was just saying. I'm just doing bug fixes and quality of life things that people have reported right now, and mostly just waiting for more of them to come. I guess I've been relaxing the past couple of days because I really went hard this past month to make it to July 1st. So, and then I'm going to work on the trailer, is what I was going to say. So
I'm excited for the trailer.
Eric has drawn up. We drew out a complete storyboard for it. Eric's made a ton of art for it. I don't know how it's going to look better than the first one. Obviously, the first one was one frame, but I don't know how much better this one is really going to look because it's still not animated. Because Eric can draw really well, but he can't animate, and I can't animate 3D characters in 2D because I'm not a 2D artist. You know, I could pose a 3D character, but the characters are 2 dimensions. So the animation is going to be really simple. It's mostly still frames. I'm really hoping it's not rough because it really has to be impressive this time, and I guess we'll see how it works out. But one of the Kickstarter rewards is going to be remake the or like goals is going to be like pay an animation studio to redo the intro, so that'll be cool. But
one question I had was you actually just reminded me of this now. Was the intro to the first trailer, was that like in engine, like all the shaders and stuff?
Oh no, that was Adobe Premiere, like really basic animating.
Yeah. Because obviously, it is a still frame, but there were a lot of like After Effects applied to it that made it.
Oh, you know what? The particle effects, I cranked up. You're right. I cranked up the particles on the spirit fragment and then edited it into the frame over top of his hand.
Right. Okay.
So that actually was an engine recording. I turned the background green. I made a literal green screen in the engine, like a very simple level with one spirit fragment and a green background, and then green screened the spirit fragment out of it, which was kind of cool.
Interesting.
But it didn't look great, but it was kind of fun. Yeah, hopefully the new trailer looks good. I think it'll look good. It's not going to look amazing, but it'll look good enough, I think.
I think the music can really sell it too, and just the art and everything. Like even just having it be.
Yeah, the music's going to be way different too. The music was very dramatic in the first trailer. It's going to be a lot more subtle, and a bit more of a build up.
Gotcha.
within the intro cutscene. So.
Well, I also think the bigger thing with this, the last trailer was like a minute long. This one's going to be a bit longer because I had a good amount of time to just grind out different areas. So I made like a lot of cool assets and stuff. So we're going to do like some level building in the other areas.
Oh, I'm just talking about the intro cutscene.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying
the trailer as a whole.
itself.
Yeah.
So
we're going to spend a lot of time making new levels in other areas.
I'll stop saying. I won't say too much, obviously, because he has
other areas that are top secret at the moment.
Yeah, other areas confirmed in Puppet Master.
Holy crap! Wait, really?
Oh no!
Oh, could have fooled me, dude. I thought this was it. I thought we were done.
Yeah, no. We're actually going to make a complete couple of rooms, like one room per, like maybe 4 different areas, so that there's more color to the trailer because the current 3 areas are not very colorful at all. So besides the Keeper's Castle, but it's really small.
Yeah, and obviously, like the last one had a little snippet of a different area. Like there wasn't. Yeah,
I'm so excited to go under the bridge. I that's my prediction. You don't say anything to confirm it, but there's so many like doors that are like just teasing the waterfall, and I'm not gonna make you respond to that, but if that's the case, I'll be very excited
waterfall.
To see it. I heard water. I don't know. I heard water.
Waterfall.
Am I completely like going insane?
There's
maybe I am.
Sound effects on the file. So
Wait, you think that's a waterfall and mist coming up around the bridge? Wait till you see what it really is.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me wait like so long.
I'm gonna make you wait 5 years after the Kickstarter fails,
and then I'm
just
gonna
for
get
it
there
to be
and
a waterfall.
You're gonna be trolling me, and it's going to just be a waterfall, and I'm just gonna be like,
I hate to say it, but you gotta sit on that though. You gotta sit on this thought for a long time, buddy.
But what if they just named the file waterfall of that MP3 and it's just to throw us off?
Go look right now. Tell me what the name of the file is.
The last 5 seconds of the trailer will be a cut to black and then some subtle waterfall sound effects just for you.
There
Okay.
is a waterfall file in the assets. It's literally called waterfall.
Oh no.
Waterfall.mp3. It can't be.
Think about the totem's got waterfall sound effects in it. It's like full circle. It's like the
what?
You cut out, buddy.
Uh-oh.
Well, rest in peace, Super
he's gone.
QGS. He had a heart attack mid-podcast.
I was going to say, he was really excited about that waterfall.
I was so excited about the waterfall.
Hey.
I can't wait.
You said waterfall and it brought him back from the dead.
Yeah,
I did.
He got really excited about it.
It's like the princess's kiss.
It's the only thing that could save him. You're welcome.
The waterfall.
This is my favorite part of the game was when I thought there was a waterfall. Sorry.
No, there's a lot about the game that I have been so excited for. Like the next area that you could go into. I have been so excited to actually work on that, but I know we have to get the demo fully done before I can work on it. Because my absolute favorite part of working on this game is being able to spend a full day and just make like 1 billion assets that look specific to one area. And it's like I got to do that a bit for these other spots, and it's a lot.
Especially now that you've gotten good at it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's the one thing that like I didn't go to art school. I didn't spend $100,000 getting to myself to be this incredibly talented artist. So I've been very homebrewed to this point. So like learning up to this point was just basically me trying things out. Like I had drawn up Antor. I had drawn up every piece for Antor like a year ago, probably around a year ago, maybe more honestly. And when we were starting to get the last few things out, I was like, I don't know, I feel like I could do them better. So I just did them again, and I feel like I did them better. So it's like that kind of thing where even the rocks as I'm going for, I'm finding my own style, I'm figuring things out. And it's really exciting getting to like when you get to a new spot and it looks completely different and things flow in their own way and like it's different color. Like the Dead City is like the grays and the yellows and the browns, and it looks gross and like dead. So like as you go through these different areas, like the one snippet in the last trailer where it was like these luscious blues and greens, that is so fun to do as like when you're drawing stuff. So like that is what I've been waiting for so long. We just need the Kickstarter to be successful. You know what I mean?
I'm desperate.
We need to actually go forward with that.
Desperate for the Kickstarter. I want to work on this game 40 hours a week. So
Yeah. Like I said, I could do 10 hours a day. Like I could sit down and just grind it out, and then at the end of the day, I crack my knuckles and go, "Oh, that was a job well done," and then I go to bed.
Me
and wake
too,
up
honestly. I mean, I work on the game all evening anyway. I would work on it all day, and then
if it weren't Puppet Master, I'd be doing it with other stuff anyway. You know what I mean? Like drawing's my passion, and for you, it's that same deal where it's like it's not just we're not just doing this because we had an idea, and we're not just doing it because we think it might do good. It's because I love art. I love being able to do this stuff.
I love game design.
Toward a project, yeah. And obviously, I love story building. Like that is the thing that I have been wanting to do my entire life, is to create a story. So now that you have the opportunity, and it's an opportunity through my skill set, is very exciting.
It's so exciting. I really hope the Kickstarter works out.
I do too.
I hope so bad.
Like I really, I just hear how passionate you guys are, and I can't help but get excited for it.
And the demo is so insanely promising. Like I don't know how someone could play it and then not be excited for the game. Like I think that if you can just get the demo into the hands of people, like I feel like that's all that you need to do at this point.
It's a little sad right now with marketing being so slow. Due to
this waiting
because we have
sucks.
to wait. Yeah, this waiting period kind of sucks because we were so excited about the demo. It's lost a little bit of steam since July 1st, but I'm gonna send it to once the Steam wishlist page exists, and I'm gonna start working on the Gabriel Games website really soon. We're sending it to a ton of YouTubers and streamers, and someone's going to pick it up and play it and think it's interesting. Someone's going to think that $300 speedrun bounty is worth doing and broadcasting to people. Someone's got it, man. This thing is too unique.
The speedrun bounty is honestly like a genius idea. I feel like
I was going to say there's not a current YouTuber on the planet that wouldn't jump on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you really get. I think it's a really easy way to community build, because with speedrunning you need to be collaborative. People will be working together even though it is a competition, but it's probably the best way you could build a community right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm really hoping, and that's why I really want this speedrun.com page to exist, so that we can start building out a list of people's runs in each of the 3 categories. Building, the community as a thing is multi-site, right? Like media platform. We have this Discord, and I want to grow a Twitter and have the speedrun.com and the YouTube. Like the community exists as this realm of different areas within these different websites, and Speedrun Bounty connects a lot of them really easily. It connects the Discord and YouTube and Twitch all at once, and of course speedrun.com.
I feel like it also solves kind of a problem with community building for a single player game that the Travelers didn't have, because I think it's a lot harder to build a community for a single player game.
That's for sure. Yeah.
In the Travelers, there was always someone making content or making something or engaging with it, and that you could join in with them.
Yeah, and there were 50 people playing that game,
Yeah. And I feel like, having a speedrun that people are doing, even if you're not interested in speedrunning, it keeps people interested in the game for a longer period of time, rather than kind of stopping playing the demo, being like, that's great, and then moving on to something else. And it gives other people who aren't as interested into speedrunning more of a chance to stumble across it and be like, wow, this is a really cool game. I want to, learn more about this or check it out again once the full thing comes out, or once check out the Kickstarter and stuff like that. But I think it's a genius idea too.
Thanks. Really, really hoping everything comes together here for this at some point soon.
All right, we're going to be moving on to our fan mail section. So we have a couple of questions directed towards torogadude and Eric. First off, this viewer asks, do you guys ever feel worried that since a lot of the game complexity is in AI and combat, that a demo in such a simple area of the game doesn't show that off most effectively, so people won't be as hyped or sold on it.
Yeah, I think we talked about that earlier. I think about that a lot. The demo has all these unique systems, but they're so barely touched on. There's only 2 augments, there's 3 amulets, 1 boss, 5 enemies. There's so little. It shows the potential of the demo, and if you talk to us like in this podcast, you can tell we got big plans for it, but it could be a little hard to see that we're capable of doing more than what we've already made. But on the other hand, I do hope that people can put together, this is the beginning of the game, so it should be simpler, so people can get a grip on how the game's mechanics are going to work. So, yeah, I'm a little worried about it, but the demo has had such positive feedback so far that it's definitely alleviated my worries a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like the Chained King kind of helps with that a little bit, because it shows, like, kind of the last official part of the demo is like that you are capable of doing like really interesting, AI character battles and stuff like that.
Mm.
Next question asks. Oh,
you can go for it.
Oh, okay. Just.
Did you ever think about putting the demo in a later game area, like how in some games you start off maxed out to get hyped at where you eventually will be?
No, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think that's something we could even have done, because it was basically like us working through the ideas that we had. So it was just, we were like, hey, we might as well start, at the beginning and then work our way forward as you progress. And then it just stayed there. So it's,
Yeah, it's the beginning of the game, Kind of makes sense for it to be a demo. I never really thought about making it other areas.
It's funny because this seems to be a recurring theme, especially in Metroidvanias, because so much of the game progression is centered around how powerful you will become, right? So, for example, one that immediately came to mind was Metroid Prime, right, where they start you off with all the upgrades. But there's also Symphony of the Night.
I was going to say Symphony of the Night, yep.
Yeah, because they give you all the stuff
Yep.
to start with, but then they take it away.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, sorry, you got to build your way back up. And it's a really unique way to open. I think it's cool.
I would say, and again, not saying much, that wouldn't exactly work with the lore of our game. And since
Right.
we are just starting with where we start, where the puppet wakes up, it wouldn't make sense to do it any other way. And especially for a demo, you don't want to go to the middle of a game somewhere where, at least right now, it feels like you are actually being introduced to everything for the first time and not being dropped in somewhere.
Agreed.
Okay, next question. What are you most excited for later on in the game that you can talk about right now?
Oh boy.
Well, that really colorful area from the first trailer, that area is going to be extremely, extremely cool.
I think...
I've already name dropped that area, right? I don't remember. Do you guys know what it's called?
I forget.
I
mean,
don't.
yes, we do. You should say what it is.
Exactly.
None of you remember, really? I could have sworn in the other podcast you guys.
I think you might have.
I feel like we should know what it is, but I don't off the top of my head.
Oh, is it
safe.
the Keeper's Garden? Is that it?
Keeper's Garden? No,
No. Okay.
no.
never
It's
mind.
not a planned area.
I'm sorry. I'll slink away into the
Shut up, Logic Mage. You should have thought before you spoke.
I think... Did we ever discuss the thing with the music?
No, we're not discussing that.
Okay. That I'm excited for that, though. You don't know what it is, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, Antor touched on it, so read his
Oh,
dialogue.
yeah. Fair.
if you're
So
curious.
what he's talking about is he's going to be releasing not only the puppetmaster soundtrack on Spotify and all streaming services, but he's
No.
also going to be releasing every torogadude song
No,
on these services as well for easy, convenient listening.
no, you have to go on YouTube. I disabled the ads at least, so.
Brim, edit out
Can't
what
believe
he's
this.
saying right now and like edit in like another clip of him saying like yes
No,
or something
no.
like that.
Feed-
Like, yes,
feed-
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure...
Feed the torogadude into like an AI database and then have
Wait,
it have
yeah,
him
just record.
Oh my
Right, it's-
You
gosh,
got all
no.
this audio. Yeah, you can
This
do-
was the plan
you can
with
do
this
his AI.
podcast.
Oh.
You wanted me to give you 2 hours of my voice so that you can make AI out of it, and this clean recording that I made for you. Well, I can't wait for AI torogadude to exist. I can't believe I got
That should be,
my voice away.
That should be the intro joke, because we make him say something funny.
Oh my god.
Only if it's clearly AI.
I will release the Torogadude songs on Spotify. We just make him say everything that he doesn't want.
You know what? I mean, just because someone's going to do it eventually anyway, you can totally do that if you can figure it out. That'd be really funny.
Can you say the word Torogatunes?
Moving on to the next question.
Torogadudes.
Let's go. Let's go. Do you want to hear the questions from Lightning WB?
I'm not sure I do, but let's hear it.
Okay. He has one about Puppetmaster and one about the Travelers.
What is this? The Travelers podcast? Come on.
I know. What a goofball.
All right, hit me with him.
His Puppetmaster one, he says, "What's the secret?"
I'm like, really?
This was a reference to something I was. This secret that King Glad can't figure it out.
Yeah, you should explain this just because some people listening to this might not know what you're talking about.
Do you think Glack is going to make it an hour and 47 minutes and 38 seconds into this video?
Yes.
I'm at 149.
Yeah, he'll listen to the entire thing. He's our most loyal viewer.
Is he? Okay, I can't say it then. Sorry, guys.
No.
Dang.
Yeah, it's like a 20-second time save though, so someone will figure it out someday. Someone who really wants that $300.
But whatever it is, it's not a. Excuse me. It's not a.
No, it's not like a. I haven't designed the game around hiding something stupid.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a legitimate skip.
Toro's gonna win his own $300 by getting the speedrun.
By doing a lazy speed run where I do the $20 skip just right at wherever it is.
He opens a trap door that no one else knew existed and just.
Yeah, no, it's not that. I swear it's not that.
No.
It's legit. When people find it, they're going to be like, "Oh, that's an interesting trick," and they'll probably be sad that I intentionally put it in instead of it being a natural discovery.
No.
Yeah. So no,
I gotcha.
no secret.
What was the other question, Super? Because I didn't.
He says, "Any details about the remaining Travelers' secrets or how we could get our hands on a mower?"
Yeah, you guys walked all the way around the world, and you didn't find the last secret. The last secret is like right next to one of the borders. So maybe walk around the world again. Maybe walk around the world.
Oh,
again.
you didn't tell us that.
No, I'm saying it now because
that's
whatever.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe walk around maybe I put it a little too far from the border. Maybe walk like 20 steps away from the border or something, so you don't see everything you already saw, and do a lap around the world. I don't remember.
I want to
say it's on the
was
north
the one
wall.
who was doing that.
I want to say it's on the north wall, maybe in the west quadrant. I don't remember though.
Dang,
So-
I was not expecting you. I was expecting you to laugh. That's really big.
Yeah,
I'm excited to search
there's
for that now.
There was actual one Traveler's secret. It's not that cool though. It's not that crazy.
Also,
Still, though, that's gonna be fun to find.
Better get your head start because it's gonna be out in a few days. So start heading over.
That's true.
Yeah,
gotta be the
Time
first
to
one
log
there.
into the Travelers for the first
I'm
time.
actually gonna do it. I'm gonna.
Tor-
I'm gonna
Yeah,
look for it too.
Did I tell you that for a while we were toying around with the idea of making an army of bots that would just roam the world algorithmically until they eventually found
Part of
they combed over every tile and they just found it eventually.
that's why the Traveler spoilers for anyone who cares about the Travelers and has watched 2 hours of this video. That's why the nuke was underground, so that no one could do that by accident.
Right.
Or no. That's why the point where you had to detonate the nuke was completely ambiguous.
Yeah.
Got it.
It wasn't marked at all.
So it just was like you had to figure out the spot and you had just do it as a blind leap of faith because the nukes were so hard to make and so rare that no one was going to comb the world nuking it. So so that a good couple of the puzzle elements were designed around knowing that someone might make an army of bots to comb the world if the game became popular enough. So yes, I was aware of that as a possibility. The game never became popular enough, but Lightning certainly could have done it. So glad I accounted for that.
He would have if he sure tried.
Yeah, he has so many accounts
Yeah,
all over the place.
He was so annoyed about the CAPTCHA for so long. Can't wait for Spacefarers to cost money. He's gonna be my biggest client.
No.
Do you have any idea like what percentage of Travelers accounts belong to Lightning WB?
I have no way of knowing, but I don't remember if I logged the IP or not. Maybe I could do a sort by IP and just assume the highest one is from Lightning WB. A sort by count, I mean, like the count of accounts created by IP.
That's funny.
That might be a funny thing to look up, honestly. But yeah, no idea. I'm sure it's at least 100 though.
Something I was thinking about just today was did the development of the Travelers influence kind of how you approach puppetmaster in like a significant way? Because it seems interesting because I don't know how much that would really apply, just considering like the format is so different, right? Because like one's a web game, the other is, you know, obviously like a piece of software you're running on your machine.
I wouldn't say it's really influenced it outside of just being a better programmer, I guess.
Right, just kind of like the raw experience.
The raw game development experience I had experience in. So the Puppet Master development experience was smoother than it could have been.
Because part of this whole journey was even just learning C, right, and like how all the intricacies of it work. Yeah.
But once you already know how to program, learning a language isn't.
Oh yeah.
Learning a new language isn't too difficult.
Right.
So, because it's really just syntax and I guess memory management if you've never done that before, which was hard to learn, but it's still all, you know, abstract problem solving like programming is in general. So, I wouldn't say. Maybe I learned to think a bit more like a player when it comes to exploiting mechanics and stuff. But it also isn't as big of a deal for a single player game. I really just spent a lot of time making sure all the animations played nice with each other. Like the puppet has 60 animations or something. So, and a lot of them are just smoothing animations from one to the next. So no matter what crazy button combination the player mashes, the puppet's going to smoothly move from one state to the next. Or at least move instantly enough that it's like doesn't look janky, you know, because gameplay always has to trump animations. So like if you want to land and instantly attack, then it's going to have to cancel that landing animation, which is fine. But you know what I mean, though. It has to be as smooth as possible within the realms of what can be animated naturally.
And that was something that came out of the Travelers, or was that just kind of a point you were?
That's just a general thing. Just keeping in mind in general that players can do anything, and the game's really got to be capable of accounting for anything, and not just like switching to a default animation for a few seconds because it completely broke. You know, it's got to look like you're doing the thing that you're doing, even if it's a bit awkward because you press too many keys at once. It's still got to visually represent the actions that you're making and have as many smoothing animations as reasonably possible.
That definitely makes a lot of sense coming out of the Travelers, just considering like how much you kind of had to not just dummy proof, but also like safeguard against all these different things that the players would try to do. Because that's inherently a game that's like built to be like poked at and prodded from all these different angles.
If it's possible, a player will do it. So the hardest thing as a game developer is
and you definitely learn that with
thinking of as many things as you possibly can all the time, every time you do literally anything. So
sorry, I just got like a mental image of the anchor trap.
Yeah,
like that was how I met Bram was because I thought that'd be funny to do, and I was like, do you want to try to do this?
Good times. That was hilarious. That was so funny. I can't wait to do Spacefarers, man. I can't wait to do this community thing with you guys again.
That'll be really awesome.
Yeah, not to look too far into the future here.
I was going to say, we got Puppet Master first.
Yes, Puppet Master first, for sure.
Got an entire game to finish.
Unless the Kickstarter fails.
Don't talk about that.
Everyone, description right now, go click the
link. Do it. do it right now.
Do it right now.
Or I will hunt you down, and I will. Yeah, it'll
If you
be-
do it,
appreciate
it'll
that,
add
guys.
everything to Spotify.
Yeah, it'll
Oh.
that's the good ending, right? Is when you do it, and then I can finally convince Toro to port this to Dreamcast, and then well, actually, no, he already committed to that. He's not. I'm holding him to this. He's porting to Dreamcast.
I said
and
I
then-
would look into it if there was time in the development cycle.
No, you.
I was actually just the other day, since the demo was done, I've been doing a little bit of profiling on all the different systems and stuff. I don't think I'm
Oh, yeah.
capable of optimizing it enough for Dreamcast. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
I was curious to see how low I could whittle it down, but there's too many really big pictures and too many really big levels and too many particle effects and stuff that it would take a lot of finagling to chop enough memory out of it to work on a really old device like that. So unfortunately, I might have to stiff you on the deal logic. But
Damn.
I did really think about it. I
You-
thought it would be cool to try. So I
Yeah, you gave
respected
it-
the
you gave it some
opinion
research.
at least.
You gave some research into it, so I do have to admire that. You know, I respect it. It's good.
Yeah, yeah.
But he will be adding the songs to Spotify if you back it. So.
If the game makes a whole lot of money and it becomes reasonable to afford putting the music on Spotify, I would be happy to. That's what Toby Fox did. So I'll do it.
Yes.
But it is expensive to do just on my own. So
Is it really though? Because I feel like I've
I need
looked
to
into.
sign with like a recording company or something. A record
Well,
company to make
it's
that.
not like a. It's a little different from like if you wanted to do physical distribution. Like you don't need a label. You need like a service. It's
I know, but I
don't
still
know.
need to sign rights to my music away, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to do that. So I want all the rights to my music until I have leverage.
Understandable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for me. Do you guys have any other last thoughts, comments, or concerns?
Oh, for me.
I think I'm good too.
Well, once again, thank you very much, Taro and Eric, for being on here. I know it's a bit of a time commitment.
It was
just to,
a pleasure.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you for having us.
This was really awesome, guys. It feels good to be, talking on the podcast BC again.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's
we'll
really
have
fun.
to have you back after the game comes out.
Well, I guess we could do a.
We could do it like
it goes and say there's going to be a
maybe like a
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter.
Kickstarter's
podcast.
dropping, yeah. So there's always that.
Ooh,
Discuss the trailer.
That too. We got the trailer to react to.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
How do we end these again? I don't remember. It's
I
been
just
like
say,
a
like-
year.
You just
I-
end it with 10 seconds of silence.
You say, you're welcome. Bye.
Eric, make sure you click the square button and so you don't lose your recording.
Okay.
Alright, click the
Alright.
X in the top right and then click
No,
and then click
no.
I don't want to save the project.
No.
All right.
Oh,
So
wait.
I just X'd out.
Wait, do we
the
want to say
program,
goodbye
so
real
really-
quick?
Yeah.
Yeah,
wait,
I was
gonna
about to say
I didn't.
goodbye.
I didn't outro us.
Let's actually have an outro in case.
Let's have an
Yeah,
outro.
we'll figure it out.
Bye.
You can't just do that.
That's his outro. He's out. He's gone.
Let's
Anyway.
let's outro.
I may have
Okay.
made the
Hey, guys.
Travelers.
Oh, wait.
I'm
Sorry.
gonna.
Fran's gonna have to do so much.
Hey
better,
guys,
sorry.
what is that, an intro?
Hey guys, welcome back to another Travelers Podcast outro. We'll see.
Why did you say another outro? Is that just like...
There's been
I mean, it
previous
is like the
ones.
fourth
like-
outro in a row the past couple minutes.
Yeah, it's good. It's true.
Okay, for real this time. Logic.
Okay.
Alright.
All right. Thank you all once again for listening to the Travelers Podcast. My name is Logic Mage.
I'm Super QGS.
Rambler.
See you all next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bramford, why'd you sound so unconvinced?